Today on Locked On Rockies, you know when the Rockies are making news, we got to talk to the people that are following the news, and few better do it than Patrick Lyons, the Rockies Insider. He joins us today to just tell us how the heck did we get to this spot?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 5th day of November in the year 2025. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day, including Locked On Rockies, which is available on your favorite streaming services, and the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies, and you can also let Patrick Lyons know what's on your mind on the Rockies Insider YouTube channel. He's also on the socials as well, but the Rockies Insider is his show, and what he does also does stuff for Just Baseball. Patrick, long time no see. Great to always have you on the show, my friend.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me, Paul. At least this year we can check off our bucket list that we did get a chance to see each other at some point over the course of this season. So we got that one out of the way.
Absolutely. I'm hoping it's going to be more of a tradition. I'd like to make it back each baseball season, no matter how frustrating the team is. And unfortunately, a funny story about that, Patrick basically doom predicted the entire season. And I looked at that picture we took the other day, and I'm like, I remember walking away from that conversation being like, dang, Patrick is not very excited about this season. And then the season happened.
Yeah, this it's been a few years running where there isn't much to get hopeful about or to set your sights on. There's always prospects that can surprise, but that would be kind of going against the grain because everybody definitely seems to be souring on a lot of the Rockies prospects. Let's hope that Charlie Condon and Ethan Holiday are the two that kind of buck that trend, and it looks good so far. We'll see.
Yeah, big, strong fall for Charlie. I mean, that's probably, when you're looking for a Rockies fan, that's probably the storyline to watch outside of the front office search. Before we go any further, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Patrick, we'll, of course, dive into where the Rockies are at now. Of course, if you missed the episode yesterday, or if you haven't been following the Rockies stuff because you took a much-needed break after the season, the Rockies basically starting from scratch here as in the front office search as people are being waived, arbitration is looming. There's a lot of work to be done here and a lot of jobs that need to be filled or just roles that need to be filled for the Colorado Rockies. But Patrick, before we get there, I want to talk about can you bring us into what it was like to be around the team second half of the season specifically? Because we're talking, hey, strong second half, the best stretch of the season for the Rockies. If they keep this up, they're certainly going to avoid being where they're at. But then it kind of, when the season ended, it kind of felt pretty similar to the beginning of the season, especially with the last month of the season going the way it did. Can you just give me some insight into what it was like to be around the team for the second half of the season?
Yeah, there was even that one point after the All-Star break where the Rockies had a better record than the Dodgers, the eventual champions. So maybe we can hang that banner up there somewhere at Coors Field. But the vibe in the clubhouse over that final month was, I would say it wasn't as bad as what it was like in April and May when the conversation was about 130 losses, 135 losses, a lot of people expecting to possibly lose their jobs, trades at the deadline. It was a different vibe because it was largely a different group of players. Some veterans that were picked up off the scrap heap, like an Orlando Arcia, who was a valued member coming off the bench to provide that veteranosity to those young players. But then all of the young players that were coming up and making their debut and contributing to the club for the very first time. And for them, it was nothing but just bonus time right there. So that sense of, man, this team is one of the worst that has ever been assembled in the history of the game wasn't really there because a lot of the players weren't a part of that opening day roster. Maybe they weren't even with the Colorado Rockies at that point, or they were just so far down the pecking order in terms of importance, in terms of, well, if this guy can produce and if that guy can do X, Y, and Z, maybe the Rockies can be a sneaky 70-win team and really get things back on track in 2026. A lot of those young players were not really counted on for doing much of that. So, the vibe was not great, but it wasn't really ho hum, because I think of everything that Warren Schaefer was able to get out of this team, particularly after that All-Star break, and through much of the summer before the wheels totally fell off. And then they end the campaign with six consecutive losses to end their season. And you go, man, taking 2 out of 3 out of the Los Angeles Angels ended up preventing history from being made.
Yeah, and I got a firsthand look on the Rockies' second to last series of the season, going up against the Mariners there, and talk about just two franchises in two totally different places. As I watch Cal Raleigh, do what he does, and MVP chants ring throughout the stadium as they go on to clinch, and I watched them clinch a playoff spot and then clinch the division on back-to-back nights, and only could hope for that. So I do want to say, or bring this up, which I guess I think this you could call this a strength of the Rockies. I do give credit to this team for not creating a really negative, toxic locker room. It doesn't really seem like the Rockies have ever gotten to that place. Is that because of Schaefer? Is that because guys like Kyle Freeland? Well, I unfortunately don't want to say they're used to losing. I mean, Kyle Freeland's been through it. Let's be real here. He's really the only, him and Senza and Marquez here, when you're talking about the main guys, as McMahon shipped off before the end of the season. Is that because of those vets just kind of know what it's like to be there? Or was it Warren Schaefer was able to really use his relationship with the young Rockies and say, let's just focus on our work. Let's do our job. Because I mean, to keep it at least afloat in a not horrible locker room, that is a win in a really tough season.
Yeah, I think there's 3 factors. That's a great question. One was having a lot to do with Warren Schaefer pointing out to this young group that you've got a lot to prove. And if you're not young, you still have a lot that you can show and pass down to the next generation. That was a huge part. There also was another level of it of, unfortunately, a lot of the players that have been carryovers in that clubhouse are familiar with losing. So there's just a familiarity. It doesn't make it any easier. It still sucks to lose games, and you could see that on all their faces, but there is a certain level of familiarity. And then I think the third piece with that is the Rockies make sure that they bring in players that don't rock the boat, which unfortunately can be a bad thing, and can say, we need to rock this boat because there's a serious problem. And if we capsize, well, then we're going to build a better boat and really be able to sail out into the open seas instead of just being in this little dinghy. And unfortunately, when you have people that don't rock the boat and go with that flow, literally and figuratively, then you're just going to be okay with that. And you are going to be able to accept that, part of what they want is a good citizen. They want a good clubhouse personnel versus somebody that's going to help change some of that culture in the locker room. And the culture is good, but it's just not a winning culture. Nobody left in that clubhouse really knows what a winning culture is like. There's a handful of guys, but we're talking 7 years ago now at this point, 8 when we start the 2026 season. So do they really remember? Can they still taste that? I don't know. And so I think it's a mixture of all those things. And a lot of that, can be complacency and an organization that sort of, I think, teaches that kind of complacency to their players and just about everywhere throughout the organization.
I mean, that is the word, right? I mean, it's hire from within. It's trust us. It's all going to come. It's all going to pan out. And here we are with a farm system that, again, people are souring on. Everything about the Rockies got exposed this year. There's no hiding from any of that. And that's tough, though, to say. Again, like, I love Kyle Freeland, but the last time Kyle Freeland pitched in a big game was 7 years ago. And he's been a serviceable guy, certainly, but no ace on a starting rotation. That was the worst starting rotation in history last year. I think that was honestly one of the toughest pills to swallow about last year, was 3 guys that if you and I were talking 7 years ago would be over the moon excited about. Maybe I think rose-colored glasses on Antonio Senzatella. I think there were some red flags back there that people might have been, but we're talking about 3 guys that were, hey, these guys made it to pitch the Rockies to the playoffs. These guys were, again, maybe not the Cy Youngs, but this is a good staff that has been successful at Coors Field. And we unfortunately saw German Marquez. The 2025 version of German Marquez it was a shell of himself. Antonio Senzatella is now in the bullpen, and Hey, Kyle Freeland's doing Kyle Freeland things. I think that, but again, he's Kyle Freeland of at best in a great rotation, would probably be a 4 or 5 at this point. But for the Rockies, it's certainly serviceable. But just for those guys specifically, last year had to be really hard. I have to imagine for those 3 guys. And probably Ryan McMahon, but I don't think there's anybody on the Rockies organization outside of maybe front office people that was last year was more difficult than those 3.
Yeah, no, it was. It was. The Rockies are they preach a lot of absolutes, like we can't sign free agent starting pitchers. We can't do this. We can't do that. There was a period of time in 17 and 18 where you have to have homegrown starting pitchers that have got their teeth kicked in the Pacific Coast League in Albuquerque. And that seemed to be the correct way. And then in a weird turn of events, they sort of decided, well, now that we've seen those guys and they're battle tested, we now need to invest in them as if they are free agent pitchers and lock them up to some longer term deals. And they haven't really worked out that well. And that, again, maybe that goes back to them not having that confidence that they can go out and acquire other starting pitchers. So, hey, love the one you're with, keep those guys around. And certainly a lot of that happened before the 2022 season. But for Marquez, you saw that loss of confidence in a major way, to the point where, not sure if he's going to end up having to settle for a minor league deal. But I also know Marquez is the kind of guy where I could still see him pitching 6 or 7 more years in the majors. And if he, can rebound next year with a really good team, maybe when he enters free agency after 2026, he can sign himself a nice 3-year deal for $45 million, something like that. That wouldn't surprise me because he's still so young. Senzatella and Freeland, they're kind of, they're on similar ends of the spectrum, whereas Senzatella is already being pegged in for a reliever spot, which I'll believe it when I see it, because if he's got a starting pedigree and you already know you're going to have to pay him over $10 million, might as well have him eat up some innings as your number 5 starter. If he only gets through 4, so be it, especially if you don't have enough younger starting pitchers. Whereas Kyle Freeland, I think he's still pitching for something. There's even a chance that he could have himself another contract, depending on how well and how many innings he pitches this year. That could tack on another season of club control in 2027. Not really sure if he's interested in leaving Colorado and continue his career somewhere else. And if the Rockies even want that to happen, but I think Kyle Freeland still has a lot more better baseball ahead of him for the next couple of years, or at least similar to what we've seen over the last few years. Marquez is probably the biggest question mark. Confidence is probably at an all-time low, but I wouldn't be surprised if he still had a lengthy career after this.
I'm rooting for those guys always. Been a pretty big critic of Antonio Senzatella, if we're being honest, but that's part of the job there. Yeah, it'd be tough to see Kyle leave, but I don't know. I mean, I wonder if the Rockies would explore, it's where they're probably going to be at the trade deadline in 2026. If Freeland's, looking all right, who knows? Let's just hope he doesn't end up on a certain team that's looking for a 3-peat or something crazy like that, which you never know. Obviously, the Rockies probably wouldn't trade with the division, but who knows? We're going to shift gears and let's talk about how, of course, the Rockies front office search, how they got to this position. And my main question for you, Patrick, when we get into this, we're going to take a break first for here is, how did we get to this point? Why wasn't this planned ahead a little bit more? What am I not understanding as someone that isn't as locked in as someone like yourself? We'll do that coming up next. Before we do that, though, going to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes PrizePicks. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. You can even cross sports if you're interested in doing something like a Bo Nix or Nikola Jokic combo, and you can try the stacks feature, which is a total game changer. You can now pick more or less on Jokic's points, threes, and assists. Why would you ever pick less with Nikola Jokic? Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot can save your lineup from a loss. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. We are also brought to you by Doer, and I got a nice local deal for you, Locked On Rockies listener here. I'm so excited about the noon jeans I have arriving soon from Doer. Doer jeans have 5 times the stretch of traditional denim. They're antibacterial, meaning your jeans stay fresher longer so you can wear more and wash less. And this is a big deal for me. They got the Cool Max technology that regulates your body temperature and wicks moisture, which keeps me cool and comfortable as the temperatures change. And the temperatures, they are a change. And I know everybody out there in Colorado, this is prime time of 65 one day and 32 with a couple inches of snow on the ground the next. Doer combines classic jeanswear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear, the best of both worlds. Simply put, Doer makes the world's most comfortable pants without having to sacrifice style. And you can check out Doer in store right here in Denver. It's at 2621 Laramie Street. Pick up a pair for yourself or as an amazing holiday gift. Mention my promo Locked On Denver in store to get 15% off your first order, or check them out online at shopduer.com/LockedOnDenver for 15% off. That's shopduer.com/LockedOnDenver. Locked On Rockies here, back with the Rockies Insider, Patrick Lyons. Patrick, before we go any further, where can folks go to make sure that they're staying up with all your work as you're still keeping an eye on the old Colorado Rockies? We're not the only show making sure people are staying informed about the Colorado Rockies throughout the offseason. Where can people go to start making sure that they're staying up to date with your work?
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, you can listen to Paul on your drive into work. You can listen to me on your drive back. You and I were the only ones doing it about 5 days a week. It's the Rockies Insider, anywhere you listen to podcasts, the Rockies Insider channel on YouTube as well for live shows, writing over at justbaseball.com and on the social medias at Patrick D. Lyons or Patrick D. Lyons, MLB, X, Blue Sky, TikTok once in a while, but the dance moves really need to be polished up a little bit.
We'll get there. And you know what? I think this would be great for you, Patrick. The thing that took over my YouTube algorithm, people traveling to baseball stadiums and eating things. Just start doing that. There you go.
It's just going to be Coors Field every day, salad. I'm kind of boring like that. But
here's another Rocky dog.
Yeah, Rocky's dog. That's it. Yeah, they give them to us free in the press box. So it's every once in a while you're like, well, I don't want this food to go to waste. So
yeah, who's going to say no to a free dog at the game? Come on, despite no matter what's happening on there. And there was some fun this year. I mean, Hunter Goodman was a phenomenal surprise for the Rockies. I mean, it's masked in all of this. I know we're going to talk about the big stuff, but let's talk a little fun here real quick. Did we just see the best season in Rockies catching history? Statistically, obviously win-losses. I know the Ionetas and the Torrealbas have had the big moments in the past, but when we're talking statistically, kind of crazy the Rockies' last couple of All-Stars have been catchers.
Yeah, it's not even close about how much of a runaway this season was, where most hits in a season by a primary catcher, home runs, RBI, extra base hits, you name it. So yeah, that really was something that was impressive to see, the fact that Hunter Goodman did not slow down. I think we saw, other than with Nolan Jones, who didn't slow down at the end of 2023, which is unfortunately probably not a comparison a lot of Rockies fans want to get brought up. But Nolan Jones took him 2 months to really get going, didn't really get those opportunities from the organization. But Hunter Goodman played 6 months of incredible baseball, the likes of which we really haven't seen in quite some time. I mean, you'd probably have to go back to Trevor Story, Nolan Arenado for someone to have 6 strong months of baseball. For him to do it as a catcher, his first time as a full-time catcher, he caught more games with the Rockies in the majors this season than he had combined his previous 4 years in the majors and minors. So this was a very steep learning curve. And I think Hunter Goodman has given fans a lot to be excited about and to believe that there isn't going to be a major step back in the same way as you could say there was for Bretton Doyle. Off the field stuff aside, you can give him a pass. Ezekiel Tovar had the injuries. Nolan Jones just really didn't come together. So I think Hunter Goodman probably has the best shot of those 4 to really sustain what he was able to do this season. Throw Michael Tolley in that mix, not able to sustain it. So I think Hunter Goodman's probably the best bet because he's had the hit tool. He's hit home runs in the minor leagues all throughout at every single level. So I feel a lot better about his chances of staying all-star caliber next season.
I love that simple answer because I was going to ask you who out of that group is there. But let's shift to the big stuff here. The Rockies timeline, of course, we expected changes to happen. We expected this to happen, and of course, we're all reacting to the news of the Rockies. The front office search basically starting over. But why is it? Maybe I'm looking at this too simplistically, but why does it feel like the Rockies waited until the end of the season? Was there a chance that Bill Schmidt was going to be staying around and for the organization to continue on the path that it was? It seems crazy that the Rockies have now gone over a month since their last baseball game, and it still feels like they're at step one for a very important offseason.
Not sure how much you watch of the Dodgers World Series parade or them talking at Dodger Stadium, but Freddie Freeman said, 2024, we made like a promise, and we came through for you fans. 2025, we came through. 2026, that push starts right now. And for a team that has been playing for the past month, and the way the Dodgers operate, they've been thinking about 2026 and 2027 and 2028 before this season even started in Tokyo, Japan. And yet the Rockies are still figuring out what they're going to do tomorrow. And that's just entirely unacceptable for, as you pointed out, look, when you got rid of Bud Black in May, you knew a lot of things needed to change. And I think the Rockies did a good job of saying all the right things. They did a couple things that appeared to be the right things, but they were also no-brainers. They were also, we can't not make this move. We can't not get rid of our manager. We can't not get rid of our general manager. We can't not say that we're not going to go outside the organization. So we have to say that. And now they're realizing that it's not as easy to just appoint someone and have them do your bidding, or that people are just going to go ahead and accept the situation that the Rockies are have been in and are really okay to continue to be in, because I think these changes now we're starting to see may have been really, begrudging. Nothing much has changed since 2023. We thought 100 losses was going to do it. That was going to bring about a change, because the Rockies prided themselves on not exactly winning the NL West, which they've still yet to do. So they haven't prided themselves on that, but we've never lost 100 games. So we've never been really great, but we definitely have never been really bad. And then in 2023, nothing changed. And then 2024, nothing changed. So these moves are just being done begrudgingly. And to think that, major changes might not even come for another year until after the next CBA comes, really just kind of shows how much interest there is by Dick Monfort and the ownership group to change how they're doing things, because I guess on the business side, things are fine.
Right. That's got to be the thing, because it's the Rockies have to be in the very unique situation here of business wise, attendance wise, we're fine. Our promo nights are great. People travel. We got the numbers. We're good to go. But I told this story a little bit earlier on. When I visited, when I was back in Denver, I didn't see the Rockies on TV once. And I was at a sports bar. I mean, I was at a bar with 6 TVs, and obviously I know it's the TV channels, but the Rockies, that side has to be a tailspin. When you're talking about engagement, when you're talking about the social, we couldn't even get, I mean, the Rockies used to have one of the most fun and engaging social media presences, and now that we can't even get finals after some of these things. And it's not to them, but I'm just saying, like, they're missing out on so much of that side and all this stuff. So, and then I guess my reaction when I hear it's not that, oh, things didn't work out. It's one of the candidates declines the offer and another drops out. Your 2 finalists. That to me says Dick Monfort was not interested in relinquishing enough control and letting these people do their jobs.
I joked years ago that if you ever saw Theo Epstein at Coors Field, just know Theo Epstein is interviewing Dick Monfort. And now in 2025, candidates that are far from Theo Epstein's ilk are maybe doing the same thing. Hey, what kind of control will I have? What kind of autonomy will I have? And if, I don't get a certain level, and if there's going to be a certain amount of meddling going on, then I'll just keep my job right now because it's going pretty well. And you know what? There's a reason why you called me. You didn't just pick my name out of a hat. It's because I'm one of the best candidates. And there's a lot of other people that are going to see that too. And I think, there are certain situations in which you don't get multiple opportunities. And if you do a bad job your first time around, then word's going to get out. Or if you waste someone's time and interview for a position that you don't really want to take, well, that might look poorly upon you. But with the way the Rockies have been going about their business, I don't think anyone is looking at Emil Sade or Matt Foreman going, hey, why didn't you take that job? Like that was a great opportunity. What's going on behind the scenes? Is it personal stuff? Are you worried about, having the spotlight, shine on you? They understand that no, it's purely the Rockies. That's the reason why this is falling apart. That's the reason why these people are pulling out or are turning down the position. And here we are, November 5th, and GM meetings are coming up. Winter meetings are coming up. Decisions need to be made. November 18th is the date in which you have to decide which players you're going to put on the 40-man roster, who you're going to protect for the Rule 5 draft. Who are you going to have to designate for assignment to make room on the 40-man roster? And again, when you lose 119 games in a season, chances are there's probably not any pieces that if you designate for assignment is going to turn around and become an all-star in a year or two, even if the Rays or the Milwaukee Brewers get their hands on them. But even still, there are players, there are moves that could really benefit the Rockies going forward, and not having somebody in that position, it's really only hurting them even further. And they've already done enough of that for the past 3 to 7 years.
Yep, 7 straight losing seasons, 3 straight losing 100 lost seasons. I did this as my reaction to the end of the year. The Rockies have gotten worse 7 straight seasons in a row. They have lost more games than the previous season, give or take. Yeah, I believe there was something, but basically that trend has continued. And again, this is why no one has confidence in the org. It's Walker's gonna bring in new life. Okay, well, it sure seems like this process is following the same thing. So before we take a break, just to put a bow on this, do you expect any of this to change soon? We're talking about less than 2 weeks now to make decisions about the roster. That's not a lot of time when you're already talking about a month of wasted time.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're going to do next. There were those 3 finalists, 2 really, not including Matt Foreman because he did end up getting interviewed, but 2 other names out there in the James Click and the Scott Sharps of the world, assistant general manager of the Kansas City Royals. Could there be something there? Could there be a link? Or are the Rockies going to say, well, man, it's kind of embarrassing we weren't able to get somebody right now. And besides the fact we are waiting another year for the CBA, maybe we do appoint somebody from within the organization and reevaluate things in a year from now, which is a very Rockies way of doing business, kicking the can down the road, promising something, maybe not even delivering it, but they may have to stay in-house. They won't have Zach Rosenthal because he stepped away, another assistant general manager that left the organization. So they may be forced to do something like that, then try to wait around for quote unquote the right candidate, because the right candidate may not want to have anything to do with the Rockies.
We got to get to our final break here before we're going to go to the another fun topic. But just for my last question on this, is Dick Monfort putting all his chips in, knowing, because we know he's going to play a role in the CBA. He's had a role in these behind the scenes stuff. Do you think he's putting the chips on? Baseball is going to be drastically different as the CBA. Why? Because I'm going to make it happen, and I'm putting the seeds in place now. Is that the gamble he might be making?
Somewhat. I don't know if I don't think baseball is going to have drastic changes, but I think any changes that do come about in the next CBA, and hopefully it doesn't require a lockout or even a strike, God forbid, but the changes that potentially do get made could be enough for Dick Monfort to say, well, this is now money that I don't have to spend, or this is now something else that I can save some money on that I would have paid for a year or so ago. Instead of signing somebody to a certain length of a contract, now all of a sudden it becomes better. So I think even if he doesn't get his way, there are some advantages for him to do certain things, but I honestly think they're probably more negligible than anything else. I think the priority really should just be make your organization a lot better. Just don't sign anybody to a long-term deal, appoint really good people, pay them what they're worth, if not more, especially if they're coming from a successful organization, and start right now in 2026 to make your team better rather than waiting yet another year.
And for Rockies fans, I don't think anyone's going to take another year when you're talking about, I'm going to say reckless speculation, historically low interest in the Rockies themselves. Coors Field and the opposing teams coming in to go see back-to-back champ Dodgers at Coors Field and Shohei, no problem. Those seats will be full, and we know Chicago and all those other big name teams, they're going to flock to Denver. But when you're talking about when Coors Field rings out with "Let's Go Rockies" chants instead of "Let's Go whoever," it's going to be a bit, and this organization continues to not build a lot of confidence. Let's shift gears. Let's have some fun. But I do have one last important question I know Rockies fans are going to want to know. So I'm going to have to hit you with that first after the break, but then we'll get into some fun stuff that I think Patrick is the best follow on the internet for. We'll talk to you about that coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, and you can get in on all the action from all the big sports, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Patrick Lyons, the Rockies Insider here. Only a couple more minutes left, but I do have to ask a question I think a lot of Rockies fans have in the back of their mind, especially when we're talking about roster decisions. Any Chris Bryant updates? You hearing anything about what's going to happen with Chris Bryant? How he's doing just health wise? I mean, it's been a while.
I haven't said this on the Rockies Insider podcast yet, so this is my hot take. I think the Rockies, everything that they've been doing over this past year has been thinking about public relations, is thinking about, strategically, how can we make our organization look better? One of those ways is appointing Walker Monfort and attributing all of the new changes that are coming about. And again, I think it's an organizational decision, but the quotes are going to Walker Monfort about going outside the organization. A lot of strategy. That's PR. That's just business. That there's nothing wrong with that. That's natural. That makes sense. So I think the Rockies, despite the fact that they're probably going to continue to keep Chris Bryant on the 40-man roster and lose a couple of players and designate them for assignment, maybe not even protect a prospect that could get taken in the Rule 5 draft. I think ultimately what they're doing is keeping him around so that when the new general manager or the new head of baseball operations comes in, one of their first orders of business is get rid of Chris Bryant. And the fan base goes, wow, I like this new person. They think like me. They're doing the necessary things that need to get done, because right now, if that decision gets made and Chris Bryant goes on the chopping block, they get rid of him. His health is not great. Nobody gets credit for it, I guess, right? I mean, you could say, well, Dick Monfort, I guess, is the one kind of making those decisions, but does that help the Rockies organization entirely? Probably not, because people are already mad at Dick Monfort. But if somebody new can come in and they're the one making that decision, you could give that person that credit. And now all of a sudden, if that person is running the Rockies, you, the fan, feels better about the Colorado Rockies in turn. So I think that's mostly the decision. That's mostly what they're waiting for. Could there be some kind of wrinkle in the next CBA Dick Monfort is thinking about, where if I hold on to Chris Bryant and this albatross of a contract, maybe there's going to be some new weird rules where you get, 25% back of a contract if a player misses? Who knows what he's thinking? But I think it's probably just a little more simple of, let's give the next person in charge credit for that, so they get, started off on the right foot.
Yeah, that's good insight too. And hey, let's generate a little buzz here. That would be certainly something that would generate some buzz there for the Rockies, but also hold the mirror back up again and be like, we're not forgetting what just happened. Patrick, before we go, you are the best Rockies stat puller on the internet. Why I love following your stuff is because you always you pointed out Ryan McMahon, the third most viewed baseball reference page this year. Every time I needed a stat to use on the show, either to highlight where the Rockies were at or just something interesting, you found it. How do you find all these things? Are you just you're just that plugged into your Rockies brain is just going a million miles a moment and you can pull all those things? Where do you get all this stuff?
Well, I'll give the Rockies PR department, the communications department, tons of credit because we get copious amounts of notes that you do have to comb through to find it and make sense. But a lot of times that gets the synapses going and you start thinking of different ways and different connections and things of that nature. And then just watching a game and go, that's really unique. I haven't seen anything like that before. And it makes the mind wander. And, if you pay for Baseball Reference and StatHead, you can search and find all kinds of crazy statistics and sort it and say, well, if you throw in these 2 triples and then that, you can come up with crazy statistics of like, hey, who are the only players to ever get hit by this many pitches, have this many base hits, home runs, and then all of a sudden you say Hall of Famer Frank Robinson and Rockies first baseman Andres Galarraga, and you go, wait a minute, maybe Big Cat deserves to be in Cooperstown when you sort the numbers that way. So some of it is just finagling it and getting used to it and knowing your history, but I do appreciate that award. And I assume it's going to be a plaque or something like that.
Yeah. I'll get right on it. I tell you what, me and Dick will work. Him and I will work on it, and we'll get it to you here as soon as possible. But Patrick, thank you again so much for the time. We're going to wrap things up here. A couple extra bonus minutes with our guy Patrick Lyons. Again, folks, the Rockies Insider. I really liked how Patrick put it. Locked On Rockies in the morning. The Rockies Insider on the way home. If you want, seriously, hey, there's a lot of great folks in the Rockies media sphere. Not as many folks talking Rockies baseball on November the 5th here on your favorite streaming services and on YouTube. So make sure you go check out Patrick there in the Rockies Insider, especially on YouTube. Go show him some love there. Patrick, anything else before we let you go for the folks to check out?
Nope, just Rockies Insider podcast. My work over at Just Baseball and all the social media stuff. Really excited for the winter meetings. I got goosed up with all the news that came out on Monday with the Hall of Fame and just all the players opting out. So I'm really excited to be down there in Orlando at the host hotel for the winter meeting. So it's going to be a lot of fun next month.
Yeah, getting a little sunshine as well. Can't beat that. Thank you again so much for making Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.